Let me ask you a question. Are you happy, cheerful, joyous, or elated? Do you have a smile on your face? I know I do, because I just finished rewatching the new Adult Swim show Smiling Friends for the 10th time. My room may be a mess, my clothes may be dirty, I might not have bathed for the last month, but I have a large smile frozen across my face as I stare deep into my computer screen. I have traded my depressing existence for the colorful world that Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack created. The two main characters, Charlie and Pim, voiced by the two creators, are my own personal therapists. Their wacky adventures never fail to put a smile on my face. And now, much like Willem Dafoe, I can't take this fucking smile off my face. Smiling Friends released on Adult Swim in January of 2022, and the network just kind of dumped the entire season at once. So every episode of the first season is available to watch, and soon the show will be streaming on HBO Max. I'll admit that I was wary of the show. The fact that it was dumped made me apprehensive, but I'm also a fan of Psychic Pebbles and Cusack, and when I'm a fan of someone, I always worry that their latest endeavors are going to disappoint me. It's not because I think they suck, but because I love what they do, and I'm scared that they might not live up to the hype. So I held off on watching their newest show, but I kept seeing my friends and colleagues post about it. It seemed like people who watched it really loved it. I relented. And during a fit of caffeine-induced insomnia, I sat down on my couch and watched the first episode. Before I knew it, I had seen the whole season. If you're on the fence, like I was, here's my recommendation. Go watch it. It's 8 11-minute episodes, so watching the whole season is like the equivalent to watching a standard rom-com movie, time-wise at least. But Hadel and Cusack managed to pack in so many jokes and gags into each short episode that it never feels like a minute, nay, a second of the show is wasted, and you'll most likely return to the episodes to discover things that you didn't notice on your first viewing. I think Smiling Friends is one of the most important television series on TV, and streaming networks right now. To find out why, let's go back to the past for a second. Psychic Pebbles and Michael Cusack both got their start on the internet, namely Newgrounds and YouTube. For anyone who doesn't know, Zach Hadel is Psychic Pebbles. Back in the day, animated videos used to do super well on this platform, and animators could find tons of success from their animated shorts. Since these shorts weren't made by lame suits in Hollywood, the humor was often different from the mainstream humor. Internet humor, you could say. Really, it was a kind of comedy that was more in touch with the younger generation than anything coming out of network television. Since the beginning of content creation on the internet, mainstream humor and internet humor have evolved divergently, with some overlap of course, but these animators who arose in the late 2000s and early 2010s created a whole new wave of animated comedy. Cusack and Hadel were by no means the only creators in this movement. There was also David Firth, Harry Partridge, Chris O'Neill, and many, many others. Many of these creators didn't just do animations. Chris O'Neill is probably best known for his humorous Let's Play channel Oni Plays, where Psychic Pebbles frequently guested. Chris, Zach, Mick Lauer, and Niall Murray had a podcast called the Sleepy Cabin Podcast or Sleepycast. These guys were constantly making content, growing their fan bases, and developing their senses of humor. I remember loving Psychic Pebbles' impressions he'd do on Oni Plays, and I think that crew single-handedly immortalized Linkara into a demigod-type figure.
Don't you talk about me, you son of a bitch!
Who said that? What is that?
It's
What
me,
is that?
the Lightbringer!
Look, there he is. There he is. Get him out of here. Get him the hell out of here. Then cuts to the audience beating the shit out of him.
What's amazing is that they have a real show out now, like on cable television. Real internet humor is now being broadcast on mainstream TV. Is this the dimensional merge that Chris Chan was talking about? Quick fun fact about Chris Chan. Hadel wanted Chris Chan to voice Grease in the episode Who Violently Murdered Simon S. Salty. But due to stupid rules from the studio about how many people could cameo and also due to the, Oedipal incident, Chris Chan could not be obtained for the role.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
So they just had one of their voice actors do a Chris Chan impression instead.
And don't forget about me, Grace. I could have done it.
Going back to what I'm supposed to be talking about, could this mean that the Hollywood bigwigs are so creatively bankrupt that they're forced to hire internet shitposters to make their movies and shows for them now? I know that this kinda already happened with $1 Million Extreme Presents World Peace. I adored that show and it was canceled way too soon.
Nick, what's going on, big guy? You just tripped my wife.
I had the same feeling when that show released that I have now with Smiling Friends. Maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of a new wave of creatives, incubated in various test tubes on the internet, coming into the real world and replacing the old guard. There have been other YouTuber movies made, but in just about every other case, they've sucked. The Smosh movie was made by the guy from Bill and Ted, and the Fred movies were produced by Nickelodeon. So I also don't see those as true expressions of the YouTubers. Some other movies, like the AVGN movie, Space Cop, and Lover, just didn't get off the ground to reach mainstream potential. On the other hand, Smiling Friends seems to be succeeding where these other projects have failed. Not only is the show beloved by fans and reaching a wide audience, it's a show made by the same people we've come to know and love over the last decade. You can tell that this show is a labor of love and not a cynical act of selling out. And the fact that it's not cynical is honestly a breath of fresh air. Smiling Friends takes a pretty positive and optimistic view of the world. It has the kind of absurdist humor that we've come to expect, both from Psychic Pebbles and from Adult Swim shows. But the show never resorts to cynicism. In fact, it preaches the opposite, and it's pretty openly anti-nihilism.
Nothing matters because we're all gonna die someday! Hey! No, please don't kill me, please, no, I don't wanna die, please don't kill me!
The show satirizes the cynical internet neets with their episode Frowning Friends. A lot of jokes are hurled at virtue signalers and the cancel culture mob, and Charlie teaches us that eating shitty food and gooning all day is not a way to live. The messages of the episodes, when there is a message, comes across as someone who's about our age giving us some friendly advice. It's not them being on a high horse. It's more like they made those mistakes in the past, and they're just here to tell us that it makes life feel kinda shitty. In that sense, its cautious optimism makes it a sort of anti-Rick and Morty. Oh, and the fact that Christianity is 100% true in this world.
Hell is actually real, and Christianity was right all along.
Speaking of other cartoons, it draws from a bunch of shows when it comes to inspiration. Structurally, the show feels kind of like regular show. It stars two 20-something-year-old wages, and each episode tends to start with it just being another day at the office, but their everyday work becomes more and more surreal or absurd until it reaches a climax at the end of the episode. But there are definitely other inspirations here too. Flapjack, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Bicentennial Man, Agatha Christie, Paradise Lost, and the Rankin and Bass adaptation of The Hobbit. That last one's super obvious though. Mib, which is just him backwards, is literally just Bilbo Baggins. Harry Partridge animated that character too. That character is also a reference to the Bjork Stalker. There are a lot of weird little references like that in the show that I enjoyed. Charlie talks about being a homunculus, which calls back to that video of the homunculus that the Russian guy kills with a Bible. Charlie also tells Shrimp that he looks like he's gonna tell his friend not to come to school tomorrow, referencing Eggy. And Mr. Boss playing DDR is an homage to the DDR craze of the last decade. The show is just chock full of fun. Hadel and Cusack tried to pack as many jokes into each episode as possible. Sadly, some jokes were cut because the lame suits thought they were too offensive. One such case was where Mustard was giving Simon S. Salty a BJ, but going up on ones, which means that it would be inhumanly fast. They were able to work this joke in, but in a milder way, in a later episode. Another fun fact is that Mr. Frog was basically the first character to be made for this show. Hadel and Cusack pitched the Mr. Frog show initially, but it was turned down. So they instead reintegrated it into Smiling Friends as a show within the show. God, I love Mr. Frog. He would have definitely been one of the four libertines in Sallow.
Dude, this house is insane. There's like 1,000 rooms in here. You have a gym, you got a theater, and you've even got a beautiful animal sanctuary.
What other characters from Smiling Friends would have also been one of the libertines? Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of degenerate libertines, I clapped when I recognized Mike Stoklasa's voice in the first episode.
Okay, but if you can't help me, I'm gonna f***ing shoot myself and make you two watch.
I clapped when I saw it.
I also soy-faced when I saw the soy face in the show. One last thing before this video devolves into me cooming about every little reference or trivia that I find fascinating. The whole show was made for the budget of one episode of Family Guy, and they had to work remotely with a hard deadline. It's a miracle that this show even got made, but you can thank the hard work and superb talent of their cast and crew. I just hope we get a second season, because one season isn't enough. Hopefully, it's a new beginning, not just for this show or for Hadel and Cusack, but for the incredibly talented people on YouTube and other content creation sites who are improving their crafts and bringing new voices to our culture. Maybe this show truly is the beginning of the dimensional merge.